IT Pro TV, binge-worthy learning for IT teams. Why is it binge-worthy? It's learning presented in an engaging and entertaining talk show format that beats voice-over PowerPoint snooze fests. Watch over 3,300 hours of content in their on-demand library, on your desktop, on the go, or in the comfort of your own living room. IT Pro TV is IT training you and your team actually want to watch, which means a better return on your learning investment. Get started with IT Pro TV for teams by visiting itpro.tv/Security Weekly and start a 7-day free trial and get 30% off standard or premium IT Pro TV memberships using the code SECWeekly30. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/PSW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. Endgame automates the hunt for both known and never-before-seen adversaries in enterprise networks. Built on unique knowledge on the adversary's tools, techniques, and tactics, Endgame's centrally managed agent prevents, detects, and responds to advanced adversaries in the earliest stages of the kill chain without prior knowledge. Endgame. Automate the hunt. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. I had some announcements. I don't know what happened to them, though.
Hey, while you're looking for them, it occurred to me that in our RSA recap segment, I failed to mention that Security Weekly won the Social Security Bloggers Award for most educational security blog. And
that's awesome.
That was really special to actually be there and accept the award, which was basically just a handshake because they send the award later. But it meant something to me because I feel like, the reason I do this show is because I've got a lot of experience and have seen a lot, and I'm trying to teach and educate. And I think all of us do that to some extent. And I think it was kind of cool that we were recognized for that.
Yes, thank you to all of those who nominated and voted for us. It's awesome to win that award, and it's especially gratifying for me. Is it is a different award?
Yeah, it's not the podcast; awesome. It's the blog.
It's awesome,
which is interesting.
I think it's awesome.
Well, I think roughly blog podcast is lumped together. I don't know that they're distinguishing.
Oh no, they're separate.
I could be wrong.
They were separate, which is interesting because pretty much the entirety contents of the blog, as we were talking about last week,
is our podcast.
Is the podcast. So, all right, yeah, sure,
we'll take it.
Yeah, another award for the shelf. International award winning, multiple
category award winning.
Yes,
it's awesome. Yep. Thank you to everyone. Very excited.
It was an honor just to have been nominated.
Right. Absolutely, it was. So Source Boston is happening May 9th and the 10th. I'll be there speaking. We'll be there recording some content. We've got a discount code for you. They get you 75%. 75%. That would be an awesome discount. No, it's not 75%. It's $75 off, a $75 discount. SW75 WMKW. Let me say that again. SW75 WMKW to get your $75 off your registration fees for Source.
That would be Sierra Whiskey 75 Michael Whiskey Kilo Whiskey.
You got it. Good job, Larry. Thank you for that.
That was way too slow.
He was thinking about it. It was making sure it was accurate.
Yes. So. And it also wasn't on the screen in front of me, so I couldn't actually read it, so I was trying to do it from memory.
So have you guys ever gotten nervous that you left your laptop in your room, and even though you put it in the safe, or even though you think you might be safe, because when you get I think the article
I wouldn't exactly say I'm nervous about it because I know the risks that I'm taking should that happen.
Right.
So,
but
I'm not saying I used to do this, but I either never let the laptop leave my proximity, or I used to work with guys that will pull the hard drive, if they were going out to dinner or going out for the evening. So at least the hard drive was safe.
And if only we could easily pull hard drives out of laptops today, I would totally
really hard
do
to
that.
do these days.
Yeah, like I just got this new laptop, and
you could just put that whole thing in your pocket.
Exactly, like I could just put this in my back pocket and go. Yeah.
Pretty sure the hard drives are now just like a chip directly attached to the motherboard in the terms of a flash chip, right?
Yeah, or they're like the M2, which if you could actually get the case apart to
get that out,
it would be fairly easy.
Yeah,
you could stick it in your wallet.
But I think one of the other things I said too is when you check into a hotel room is that you kind of feel more like it's home when you come in, like it's your space, and that's certainly not the case. Now, what's interesting is this attack aside, which is going to talk about attacking hotel key cards. It's just one of so many ways that other people could potentially access your hotel room that we've covered on the show.
Yep.
If you think about it, there's the maid attack,
the evil maid attack,
maid attack. Which we have another story about that, ironically enough. We're going to talk about hotels a lot. Larry spends a lot of time in hotel rooms, especially. So Jeff's got some hard drives or floppy disk. In the glare, it kind of looked like a floppy disk there for a minute.
These are hard drives. I am still in the habit of pulling hard drives from laptops.
There you go.
Clearly, those are old ones because those are spinning disks.
Oh, yeah. These are old ones.
Yep.
So we've talked about the evil maid attack. We've also... well, it's not just the maid is that's kind of the wrong. It's someone's social engineering the maid essentially,
or it is the maid themselves,
or it is the maid themselves. Sure.
Either way.
The other attack is a page right out of Deviant's book where it's essentially just the arm that reaches under the door.
under the door tool or
pulls the lever, which is kind of interesting. That's how people gain access to cars today. I was talking about that at It's a wedge to wedge the door open a little bit and the arm. To go right in, which I'm sure those techniques have existed forever.
Oh yeah, and the sad one with the cars, it's half the times nowadays it's not like you have to wedge into the door and pull onto the mechanism to pull the door lock up. No, you force the door open with the flex of the door, and then you hit the automatic unlock button on the thing. So it's not even like you have to have any really good manipulation to it. It's just you push a button.
Right. And in these tools, just to kind of set the stage even further. My guess is they've existed for a long time. Like you can't imagine. You're not telling me that you've got hotels that have existed forever, and when they put these new fancy lock mechanisms, you have thousands of rooms that no one's ever locked themselves out due to some kind of malfunction, maybe of the door. And you're telling me the maintenance people aren't walking around with the arm that reaches underneath the door and pulls the handle to get it open? Like, that stuff has been around.
Well, chances are they've got the key with the maintenance folks or something like that.
Well, if it's an electronic lock, is there a physical key?
There conceivably
could be. Correct. But ones that are fully electronic or and motorized, if there is a malfunction and it's locked, you could conceivably use the bar to pull the handle. So that's why I'm guessing that a lot of these tools and what's interesting, I haven't noticed that recently until I've recently locked my keys in my car in a rental car. Well, the rental car wasn't my fault; the battery was dead. But that
was DC.
Yeah, it was. I think you were you with us, Jeff? No,
I was meeting up with you.
Yeah, and so
you were late.
We were late because we locked the car locked itself due to the battery being dead, and we closed all the doors and all the luggage was inside. And they basically just it looks like the wedge you keep a door open with. And they just wedge it in the door. They stick the arm in, like you said. They hit the button. They pull the handle. They roll the window down. In the case that the car was running, because I locked my keys in my truck, and that's all they did. It was running at the time, and it kept running.
Even better when it's running at the gas pump.
Yeah, right. And so all they did was like roll the window down and then just reach in and open the door. So and I haven't seen that technique until fairly recently. Like I feel like before, maybe because of the car technology, like you were alluding to, Larry, they had the Slim Jim to open the
we're
locks.
Actually pulling the mechanism.
Right. So.
I am not saying that I have or haven't broken into cars numerous times over the years, but it was always a matter of prying the door open far enough to get. My favorite tool is a coat hanger.
Coat hanger to pull the lock, right?
In the old days, to pull the lock, but you can also use the coat hanger to push the automatic unlock button. Because there's always a mechanism in there.
Right.
Not saying I do that, on a regular basis.
Well, back in the day, most of the lock and unlock things looked like golf tees.
Yep.
So if you bent that hanger in the right way, you could just loop it around that and pull it up. So yeah,
it was hypothetically very, very easy.
Right. And so, but now in this case, this is a somewhat, what we think is a more sophisticated attack. F-Secure has done research and disclosed it to the lock company. And we're not quite sure which hotels are. I'm sure you could figure it out. Which hotels use this particular manufacturer. What was the name of the lock? It was some weird name.
It is.
I had it. Oh, Assa Abloy.
Yes. Well, so it's actually it's Vincard Vision locks, which was purchased by Assa Abloy.
Gotcha.
Because Assa Abloy has a really good reputation in the market for doing some really good things with locks and such.
Yeah. Okay.
But this was one of their acquisitions.
Interesting. So, basically what the researchers found is if you got in your possession and didn't necessarily have to be a valid in terms of
still working.
Still working to unlock a door. It just has to be a previously issued hotel key card.
Yep.
My understanding, it was either a magstripe card or an RFID-based card.
Yep. So my understanding of that is that this attack was allegedly 10 years in the making, and what they initially looked at it was with magstripe, but the company has moved their methodology to RFID type based prox card type technology, but they retain. My understanding is that they retained the same method for deriving keys between the mag swipe. They just changed the delivery method.
Yeah,
they changed the delivery method.
In this attack, the delivery method is insignificant.
Right.
It's figuring out what the master key code is.
Yep.
How you tell the lock what the code is could be magstripe, could be RFID. And so what the researchers figured out is with a key card from a hotel and the knowledge that they had gleaned from the way the software works, which we'll get to, they're able to then create or get the data to then create, because you need a magstripe writer or an RFID writing process to create a new card that is the master key for that hotel that will open up any lock and or door in the hotel. Now, my theory is that there is software that comes with these particular locks to generate key cards for hotel. I mean, it's conceivable that when you go to the front desk and you check in, that there's some software-based component that is issuing these key cards and generating the right keys. So there's some kind of software that's doing this.
Yep.
That inside of that software, there is some sort of master key or associated seed and master key, some type of cryptographic element, right? That's the same for every hotel, or maybe the process for generating it is the same for every hotel,
or it's generated by default upon ship, and then you have the option
I would not even be surprised if it's not the same seed master string for every card that's manufactured, and not necessarily unique per hotel,
But the fact that you need that hotel's card means that the master key isn't the same for every hotel. That you can...
It could be,
with
but...
maybe knowledge of of the way that software generates the key and knowledge of an existing key, you've got enough of the pieces to generate a master key for that hotel, not necessarily a master key that works for every hotel.
Right.
Well, forget the idea of cryptography for a minute. Just think about the basic things that you need, and I'm sure most of us have stayed at a hotel and you use a key of some sort that either works or it doesn't. It works on a certain door, and it works for a certain amount of time. So you can think about the pieces of information that likely go into whatever this thing is. Let's call it a code that actually opens the door. Name of the hotel, or probably more likely there's some sort of the hotel has some sort of a number or code associated with what that hotel is,
like a store number, but in this case a hotel number, right?
Well, almost like the first couple digits on your credit card identifies what kind of card it is, what bank you are, and what type of card it is. Something similar to that. Technically that's a code. Some sort of an abbreviation of some master information. So room number is probably part of the information, and there's some, and most checkouts are the same amount of time, so maybe that's more of a constant. But you're probably going to put in some sort of date to say what's the expiration date of the card, and those are the basic components that I'm guessing are wrapped together with some sort of probably not very complicated algorithm, with whatever is the constant on these keys to produce the room key, the code that actually...
By constant, you mean clear text, and you have
Well,
you might have some. Well, to go back to cryptography, Jeff, you might have some of the clear text because you, like Jeff is saying, you have some of these constants of information.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to derive some of that, and then you've got some ciphertext on the card itself, and then you've got, which my theory is something from the software that is in the form of some kind of master key or cryptographic element in that software. Whether or not you're getting what data you're getting from that software is purely speculative on my part, but you've got that piece, and with all of those pieces of information, you're basically able to derive a master key for a particular hotel.
I will also add that you're neglecting one component. You talk about the software to program the card so you can get in the room, and then you have the card itself, but there's the other component of the actual reader on the door that needs to be able to perform similar type of cryptographic functions to be able to say, yeah, this key as presented is valid, and that those elements can also be stored on the reader itself, which
and that's a great point, Larry. And cryptologists would probably argue that this is probably not a cryptographic function at all, probably just some very simple mathematical algorithm. For that very reason, that all the doors need to be able to do the computing. Now, cryptographically, the doors would need to have a copy of a key. If it was crypto, they would need to have a copy of a key, which clearly that they don't. So it's really more like, we always talk about cracking passwords, but we're not really cracking passwords. We're rehashing passwords or words and phrases and looking for a match. There's no cracking involved at all. There's no breaking because all the passwords are made with one-time hashes. So from that perspective, it might be some simplistic hashing function that's performed that takes all these known elements and that master think firmware, think embedded, constant that's on the card also has to be in the mechanism in the door, and that's what makes it all work.
A stupid question. The locks in hotels, are some of them wirelessly connected, or are they just static mechanisms?
No, there's some of them are depends what you call wireless, because I'm Hilton. And I'm always saying, you can I can get a key on my phone basically and use that. I don't know if that, but it's still probably near field, so that technically probably.
Yeah, but they're not.
Yeah, that's technically wireless, but and I know where you're going with this, Paul.
Like the management of them.
How do you update the locks?
Right.
And
that's my question. I know they have USB ports on several models.
Yep, USB ports
that was another hack
or
too.
Some derivative of a one wire or two wire protocol where you could plug the little marker with the Arduino in it.
Yes, I remember that. So there have been hacks before that required you to plug an Arduino into the USB port.
Yep. Largely, to the best of my knowledge, those locks are not wirelessly enabled.
Right.
And the big part of that is because they're powered by battery.
Yes. So
how doing Wi-Fi with something like that is challenging because of the power requirements. Yeah. However, there's possibility of getting power to a door lock through some mechanism, and it becomes weird. You could use other technologies that are using significantly lower power protocols to do some management of that. But I think about some of those protocols like Bluetooth Low Energy and Zigbee. All right, the ability to push volumes of data is not there.
Right. So it's interesting that researchers worked with the company to develop a fix.
Yep.
And they haven't released any of the details. Again, we're purely speculative. I think we might be proven right or wrong, or likely somewhere in between, when the details perhaps are released, or maybe they're never released. I'm not sure. But it makes me wonder what the fix is. And I think Kyle was one of our developers bring up earlier, like, a lot of the hotels are basically a franchise, so the main corporate office may get notified first, right, that all of this particular chain of hotels needs to update. Then all the franchises need to update. And what is that update? Does the update... I know in the past when we talked about the Arduino hack, you had to physically go to each mechanism and perform an update.
And that was what they were saying with this article. You physically have to go to each lock and update.
And so there is an update that has to happen on the locks themselves, right? Not just on the
And that answers the question
software.
of whether they're wireless, by the way.
Yes, which means they're not. Very interesting.
Yeah, so it's essentially they have to install a patch, which probably just means they're swapping out to a new key, or maybe they've done something more, whatever this constant, master key, seed key is that we're talking about, and maybe they've done something to encrypt it to try to, obfuscate it a little bit. I'm it's probably a pretty simple fix for it to be a mass fix, but probably from a cryptographic perspective makes a big difference.
So I think about this with some of the other hotel keys that we see that in lots of places here in the U.S. The hotel chains are implementing MyFair Classic for their key cards, which have been horribly broken for a really long time, and really long time, relative in our industry. And many of the hotel chains are still using default keys that come from the manufacturer, or when they do, the MyFair Classic stuff is just vulnerable to other attacks. That just takes time with a key card, and then you can copy them, and then potentially turn that into other cards if you know what the format for some of those locks are.
Oh, like I did at CCDC.
Well, that's cheating.
It was. I did cheat. Yes.
No, well, actually,
one could argue that hacking and cheating are very similar, if not the same.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, you figured it out by looking at an unattended machine with shell history.
That's right.
Yes,
that's right.
So, which was brilliant, by the way.
I don't know if it was brilliant, but I was, using what tools I had at my disposal to achieve a goal. Which, is which is pretty. It was pretty fun.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the whole thing is a great segue into our next story about, hey, we're going to still talk about hotels and the Evil Maid attack. And Patrick Wardle, did I say that right? He's been on the show before. Patrick Wardle. I always feel like I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, and I apologize, Patrick. He is truly a brilliant security researcher, and has released a tool that there's a free and a paid version that you can go get that will. And it sounded very simplistic when I first saw this story, and whoever Patrick's PR team is doing a fantastic job, because I saw that. I don't know about you, Larry, but I saw this story everywhere, and not just for like a day or two, but like for a really long time. For a story to be circulating like a week or so, have it still be in my headlines, I was almost forced to talk about it. But it gives you a lot more functionality in terms of basically setting an alarm on your, I believe right now it's limited to OS 10 based.
Yep. So it looks like OS 10 and a companion iOS app.
Yeah. And so basically it sends an alert to your phone if someone opens the lid when you're not in front of your laptop. They're actually on newer laptops. Patrick was able to code it as such that when you open the lid and you authenticate, it doesn't take a picture of you because it knows that you've authenticated. But I think that's only with the fingerprint reader on MacBooks with the touch bar or whatever. So it gives you a lot of nice features about when it should take the picture, where it should send the picture, how it should behave. And there's some interesting functionality there. Now, what some people have speculated, and what I've also kind of wondered too, is, well, my laptop's got to be on, first of all. And if it's going to send if it's going to send something anywhere, it's got to be connected to
some sort of
internet somehow. And also, I thought of it as like, well, someone's in my hotel room and my laptop's sitting on the desk, and they open it and it takes a picture of them and sends off an alert, and they run away, and my laptop is still safe. Not necessarily how someone's going to steal your laptop. They're not. They might. I mean, that is, to Patrick's credit, that is an attack. Maybe you don't want to have the person alerted that you took their laptop, so you're going to gain access to their room, either by the Evil Maid attack or several other methods, which we described on this show, which kind of makes me uncomfortable now that we basically just, well, everyone already really knew ways in which we can get into a hotel room. So I'm going to gain access to your room. I'm going to maybe open the lid, and I'm going to stick my USB key in. Maybe I'm not going to open the lid and stick my USB key in. But maybe Patrick's software can also detect that a USB key has been plugged in when I'm not in front of my computer. So I think there's kind of interesting things. That person may just take the computer, and at some point might open the lid in order to wipe the laptop or whatever. So I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting, software to have on your laptop to potentially protect it. I would imagine that
pretty cool stuff.
But I don't know if it's going to help you get it back, right? Like,
right.
If someone does take it from your room and leaves it off, and then maybe they're wiping the operating system before it's internet connected. There goes your software. Maybe it is internet connected when they're wiping it, but most likely not.
I can't think of the company's name, but I swear one of the companies I saw or talked to this week, they got their start doing what was essentially LoJack for laptops.
Yeah, I know it's the company you're speaking of, and I can't think of it either.
Yeah, I can't think of their name, but similar concept. Just put some sort of tracking device on your laptop. I like the idea of Mission Impossible. Just blow the thing up. Personally.
Yes, if someone, maybe we need to have Patrick add a feature for that. That if it does recognize it's stolen, it just detonates.
Yeah, it uses Charlie Miller's battery destruction stuff. So
yes.
that catches the battery on
remember
fire.
that research? Yes,
Yep,
that was interesting too.
That would be cool.
All right, what else we got for stories this evening, gentlemen?
All sorts of good stuff. I had at least one or two that I wanted to talk about there. I think we added a story a week or so ago about the siren jack. I'll be using software-defined radio to hijack the emergency warning sirens.
Yes.
The what is it? AMT systems have come back with a rebuttal. And I think the rebuttal is totally lame.
You can't do that. It's impossible.
Basically, they said, "Oh, yeah, great." There was the Bastille and Ballant said that they had no access to their equipment. However, they clearly show them seeing the equipment. Yes, that was to do proof of concept and not actually attack real sirens. They say that Bastille said that anybody with a $35 transmitter can perform this attack, while clearly they used tens of thousands of dollars worth of software-defined radios to develop the attack. Like, yes, because that's what they do. That's what they have access to. But once they knew what they had, they could re-implement that on a $35 radio. I mean, I think that no, that's.
Have they released their software or no? Why would they? Yeah.
Yep. They blurred out some. They say that Sieber blurred out some of the equipment. Why'd they blur it out? Because let's see. It shows him that he's plugged in with a debug cable into the siren, and it's only used for programming and diagnostics. So why are they doing this and while demonstrating over-the-air stuff? Because they clearly note that they just say in one of the next ones that, by transmitting on these frequencies to interact with our sirens is illegal. But you can use these other tools to program the sirens to listen on different frequencies where it's legal for you to interact with them.
Oh, hence why they had to go.
Why do you think they used the damn debug cable to set the siren to be in a frequency where
you can
could transmit to it? Like,
and the frequency that's just the medium, not necessarily changes the attack vector. In other words, right? Yep. Like that's just the frequency it's listening on. They changed the port. The attack is the same, and it works regardless of what port that you're listening on.
Yep. Oh, and then the other
part of their defense is basically you can't do that. That's illegal.
Yeah. Right. But they say none of them show over-the-air transmissions unless it's packets because transmitting on a licensed frequency is illegal. Yet the radio included in the ATI siren is very easy to reprogram to a different frequency, or license-free radio could have been used, and it could have been easily changed in order to legally demonstrate sending malicious packets. What do you think he did?
Hey, aren't there provisions if you own the equipment? You still can't transmit on that frequency, even if you're doing it for testing purposes.
There's some ways around it.
I see.
You do it as exactly what Ballant had done, and they even showed it in the videos. He used an attenuator and a cable. So basically, he had a software-defined radio that was transmitting on those frequencies that are licensed. But he wasn't sending it out into the air. He was sending it through a cable and reducing the amplitude and plugging it directly into the antenna port. So it wasn't going everywhere.
Wasn't out in the air.
It wasn't out in the air, but the air became the cable in order to be safe and not be illegal. Like,
That's really cool.
like, but still, I think their response is freaking bogus.
Agreed. I wanted to talk about not
Alexa?
no. No, don't say it. We have to do this whole spiel about this article without saying the key word.
Every time you say it, you have to say never mind afterwards.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I want people to not have to worry about their devices triggering when they listen to the show.
Right, like
So
Alexa.
We're gonna,
Never mind.
Damn, Larry.
So I'll point out just real quickly
Yes.
a couple stories that my first two are just kind of. I thought they were
But we
interesting.
didn't get
just
to
in the
finish Paul's
titles.
Alexa never mind story.
Paul was taking too long.
No, he wasn't.
There's an article that says that basically small merchants are struggling to get PCI compliant, and it's really just a losing battle. And then the companion article is the cost of cyber breach for small companies is quadrupling. Just thought-provoking.
Good to know that we fixed that problem.
Yes. So back to your Amazon Echo skill.
Amazon Echo skill. These were researchers from Checkmarks that conducted a study and some security research that basically they wrote a new skill.
An app, effectively.
An app for the Amazon Echo platform. Yep. And now what's interesting is they did not publish this app, but they were able to install the app onto a device.
Yeah, they effectively side-loaded type of thing.
Yeah,
yep.
And it allowed them to. So it was once you enable or activate their app on the Echo platform, it was a calculator app that it was posing as.
Yep.
So you tell it to do math, and this app would then continue listening to everything you said after it,
and then
until you said stop.
And then it would do all of the speech recognition and translation
and record speech to text,
and all that stuff.
Record it and then send it off to not Amazon's, to Amazon's, but also to any other server of your choosing.
Yep.
Now, what's interesting is usually when you issue a command to your Amazon Echo platform, and you the Echo platform completes your task, it will seemingly stop listening. Like the blue ring isn't there anymore.
That's the rub,
right.
Is that they were never able to take their skill and have it turn off the blue ring when it was not listening. When it was listening. Yep. So that was the thing. They'd basically have it turn on and listen.
But the blue ring is still there.
And the blue ring is still there. Even though you've stopped talking and it's giving you your answer, the blue ring is still there.
Gotcha.
So they were never able to bypass that. And their thought was that, well, many people might not notice that.
Yeah, I buy that, actually.
And that's a possibility.
Because you're not... the Echo platform doesn't require that you look at, unless you have the Echo Show, doesn't require, and still doesn't require that you... look at it while you're just talking, doing something else. I mean, it's one of the convenience factors of having this in your home.
So we have one in our master bedroom on the nightstand, and when we go to bed at night, we have the Echo tell us a joke or something of the like.
Bedtime story.
Exactly, or sing us a song, and the light turns on and it's pitch black in the room. It's like, why is it so bright in here?
Right. So you would notice.
Jay-Z. Where does your garden grow? Now, Larry, explain that to Paul.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Is that a what is that?
Never mind.
I didn't get a reference. Here I was making fun of Mark for not getting any of my movie references. But
it's a sci-fi movie that came out 50 years ago this month.
Okay.
And dealt with artificial intelligence.
2001 Space Odyssey.
There you go.
So
I haven't watched that one in a long time. It's going to be released in the theaters, though. They're going to run it in select theaters. I hope it comes here in Rhode Island because I totally want to go see it in the theater.
Yeah, you definitely need to see it in the theaters so you can not understand it on the big screen.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. So the one with the Echo is that Amazon they Checkmarks talked to Amazon. Amazon said, "Oh yeah, that's kind of a problem." So they now have some ways to prevent apps from turning on the listening for extended periods of time.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, so they've essentially fixed the problem.
Yep.
That's good.
Cool. One other one that I had in there that I thought, my story number 2, is that, I think that we're very much starting to turn a point that we need to be more concerned about other wireless technologies in our environment, especially ones that we don't know about. And I'm not talking just about Wi-Fi and Bluetooth Low Energy and all those types of things, but more of the proprietary type of stuff in things that you might not consider being a transmitter. Because where was it? At a conference at Osmo DevCon. Effectively a software-defined radio conference. A gentleman, Steve Markgraf, found that there was a embedded processor available in a device that effectively could be turned into a transmitter by just interacting with the device and sending it commands, just like the intended purpose was. You write a driver, it sends these commands over USB, and it turns the processor inside this device into a transmitter. And he was able to transmit FM radio.
We've seen research like this before, haven't we?
Become a fake cell tower.
It sounds really familiar. It
does.
And interject fake GPS signals, as well as a bunch of other radio-related stuff at very low power. The thing is that's kind of terrifying to me is that it is a USB to VGA adapter.
Oh, I saw this story too. Yes.
Because now we're finding that we can turn just about anything into a transmitter.
I remember there being some debate as to wherever I read this article about, like, you're better off just going to get hardware that's intended for this purpose. RTL
SDR. Yeah,
RTL
but
SDR.
that only does receive. This does transmit. And the point is that this doesn't look like a damn radio. It's a freaking USB to VGA converter.
It's true. It's true.
Which again underscores what I was saying earlier, that what was old has become new again, because we may or may not have figured out how to transmit with other objects in the past.
Yes.
Well, there was that story we covered a few shows ago. I don't know how much we talked about it, but I added it that there's like 8 million ways that we've now seen to jump an air gap.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe 8 million's a gross exaggeration. There's at least in the article that I read a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, here's another one.
Here's another one. And oh, by the way, this is following like these other 6. I think it was actually 6 different methods and research that has been published about how to jump an air gap, right? And like, wow, like every time. Like, we totally fell into this trap. Every time it was in the press that there had been a new way to jump an air gap, we totally covered it on the show.
Yep.
Until such time we got to this one, and I'm like, yeah, here's another theoretical paper about how you could theoretically jump an air gap with, the blinking lights on the monitor, the USB, the sound cards, and the speaker on the motherboard. And what are some other ones? Basically, any way you could generate any kind of light or sound waves.
Use your USB to VGA dongle. So here's one that I want to see, and I'm going to throw this out to our audience. When Galen and I put together Vapor Trail, we used the Raspberry Pi to effectively, not our work, but to toggle a GPIO pin with PWM, pulse width modulation, to create an FM signal.
Right.
Well, think about all of those fans that are plugged into your nice motherboard on your desktop gaming rig or your desktop computer in your office.
I think I've seen a research paper on that.
Those are all PWM controlled fans, and can we use the motherboard to directly control those fans at particular speeds using PWM to effectively generate FM transmission?
You could generate some type of transmission. Of course, you'd need a really high-powered listening device if it was sound, right?
Well, no, it's not sound. It's FM. It's FM
radio.
radio.
Yeah, so you could make them transmit on FM. Sure.
And even you think about it, we're using that Pi to generate PWM output with an antenna. You've got a wire attached to it going to the fan. There's your antenna. This might actually get some decent distance, a couple hundred yards.
That'll be the next paper that we see about how to jump air gaps.
Just remember, when you write that paper, give us credit.
That's right. I heard it from Larry at Security Weekly.
Yep.
There's some other stories in here that I think I wanted to cover. Although it's kind of interesting when I read these stories, I'm like, well, it's really interesting. We should talk about it on the show. And then when we get to the show, I'm like, that's really not that interesting, I guess. The ones we've talked about were definitely the most interesting ones, at least from my list.
Amazon's internet domain service used to reroute web traffic down for 2 hours.
That was the other big one. Basically,
Route 53 was borked.
Yeah, they basically manipulated BGP and DNS to hijack. In this essentially is a modern bank heist, right? They hijacked some crypto mining service and stole cryptocurrency.
Of course they did.
Well, why not?
Good,
right?
Good for them. Hey, I posted up a 3-part series that Steve Reagan put out last week, covering malware, healthcare, Allscripts, and SamSam. Steve's a great guy, and he was really excited. I saw him out at RSA. He's really excited to be putting this series out, so I thought I'd give him a little shout out and put it up on our wiki.
Nice. And
that was in the news this week too.
Yep,
healthcare devices with malware.
Yep, and also SamSam was kind of interesting too, given that was allegedly what hit the city of Atlanta.
Yep.
And
well, now what's interesting is Atlanta was ransomware, assuming the SamSam was also the ransomware worm that they were hit with.
Yep.
Yes. The article that I read said that there was another variant of some type of malware, or not a variant, but malware that was infecting healthcare systems, and researchers were kind of puzzled because they looked at it and they're like, it wasn't trying to steal data, it wasn't trying to do ransomware, it wasn't mining any cryptocurrency. Like, it was just there, and we don't know who put it there or why. It was just kind of like laying in waiting, not really doing all of those traditional things that attackers are using today to make money. It was just kind of there, which to me, that's actually pretty scary.
Yes. It is. That's like the electronic Manchurian candidate.
Right.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, so coming out of the SamSam thing, and you think about what happened at the city of Atlanta, apparently because it's a matter of public record and such, city of Atlanta had to publish some documents about what they had allocated for emergency spending, and it was terrifying how much money they had to allocate.
Was it 2.5 million, 2.6 million from Atlanta? But Equifax has them beat, as the headline that I read was Equifax has spent $242.7 million on its data breach so far. I'm not sure how they calculate that number or how that number got so high. Equifax carries 120.
Would you like to know?
I would. And it also says Equifax carries $125 million in cybersecurity insurance with a $75 million deductible.
So typically those numbers are derived from all the forensics investigators that they have to bring in, law firms, PR firms.
Yep.
And they probably had to go out and buy some new technology here and there, maybe do some training for people. And that's all before whatever fines are levied against them. But they have to hire a legal firm, because I'm not up to speed, but I'm sure the attorneys general of probably most of the 50 states have filed civil suits against Equifax, and they've got to defend against all that. And then there's the government with probably the FTC that they have to contend with. So, I mean, a lot of that money could just be legal fees.
In the Equifax case, they state that $28.9 million of legal and investigative fees included legal and professional services to investigate the cybersecurity incident and respond to legal, government, and regulatory investigations, as Jeff said.
Yep.
So you had it there in writing, and you made me say that anyway?
I was just testing your knowledge of data breaches and
how did I do?
You did great. You did great. It wasn't that part wasn't the majority. They spent $41 million of product liability costs, including expected costs of fulfillment of Trust ID Premier in support of consumers' use of Trust ID Premier, $45 million of IT data and security center costs, and the incident handling, it looks like, cost $78 million. That's some big bills. That's
But yeah, forensics investigators charge by the hour, and it's like, I mean, when I was involved in it 5-6 years ago, it was $300, $400, $500, $600 an hour. So it's not cheap.
Yep. Nope.
That adds up quick.
Yep. So looking at the Atlanta one, by small beans comparison,
right? They were like 650,000 of SecureWorks.
Well, yeah. So looking at this article, it says 1.4 million, 500,000. 50,000 to crisis communications, 60,000 to Cisco Incident Response Service, 60,000 for staff augmentation, $650,000 to SecureWorks,
right,
and $600,000 to E&Y.
They spread it. They spread it out between a couple of different companies for their response efforts.
Yep. And the ransom was only $52,000.
Yeah, but like I've said before, you can't pay the ransom.
Yeah, you can.
Sure,
okay.
you can.
So you can. But so here's my first point. If you pay the ransom, what if it really doesn't unlock your systems? Now you just lost another $50,000 for nothing. Secondly, if you do pay the ransom,
if your kid gets kidnapped, do you call the cops or don't you?
Yeah, this is one of those things.
You read the book that I talked about, Never Split the Difference. He talks about what you do in those cases and how some of those cases have actually worked out. But so
we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yes.
Until you do.
Well, no. So then let's say you do pay the ransom, you unlock your systems, you give them $50,000. What inevitably is going to happen, in my opinion, is that they're going to say, well, they paid once, maybe they'll pay again. And what happens if we ransomware them because maybe they haven't fixed the problem because they paid the ransom, and paying the ransom doesn't fix your systems.
Right.
Now you've paid them, they're like, maybe they'll pay us more. Like, let's do it again.
Right, agreed. Payment
this time it's $150,000.
Payment doesn't fix the root cause.
Correct.
And
absolutely.
But I think fixing
what's interesting is all these fees for fixing it are really high. Like, in the future, are we going to see higher ransoms as a result? It'd be like, well, you paid secure. I mean, I'm not picking on SecureWorks, but like, you paid SecureWorks. It's in the press now, public knowledge. City of Atlanta paid SecureWorks, let's just use that as an example, $650,000. Well, like, maybe next time, like, your ransom is $650,000.
Yep. Hell, we'll give you a bargain, $500,000.
Yeah. Right.
Separate but related. I mean, I had customers back in the PCI days that they weren't compliant. They were working towards it, so they were paying the monthly fines for not being compliant, and it was just a line item cost. They're like, it's going to take us a year. It's going to take us 18 months. We're just going to pay the fine. We're not going to cobble something together and pretend to be compliant. I mean, that wasn't necessarily always the motivation, but there are companies out there that are like, we'll just pay the fine. We'll just pay the ransomware. What's important to point out is that we're listing all these things that add up to the costs of a breach. Very few companies get that kind of detail and have that level of discussion when they're evaluating what to do or not do in terms of investments in any kind of security technology, personnel, training, compliance, regulatory things. Most companies are like, nothing bad has happened yet. We'll take our chances.
Well, in the in the optimistic lens, I think that there are these two companies, or Atlanta and Equifax, they're spending this money, and we're saying that it's part of the response to this breach. But hopefully, I like to think it's not just response to the breach.
It's fixing the problem.
Fixing their problems with IT operations, development, security, all of those areas that they're not just spending money in the response. Part of the response is lessons learned and fixing some of the more inherent and systemic problems.
Fixing the root cause.
Yeah.
And
let's
hopefully
hope they're
fixing
doing
the
that.
systemic.
Right?
There's certainly that possibility, but there's also the likelihood that it's got their attention right now, but once the dust settles down and the headlines aren't so prevalent, human nature is you revert back to we've done a lot. We've made the investments. We're good now.
Yep.
They don't necessarily embrace. Oh no, this is like a lifestyle change.
You
need to change your behavior.
Been there, done that in an organization that got compromised. They were willing to fund building a world-class operation to better protect their infrastructure and all of their data. And 5 years goes by, and not a single compromise has happened, and we're on top of anything when it did. And budget time comes, and things are end of life and need to be replaced, and they're like, well, we haven't had any problems since, so why do we need to replace this stuff?
Right.
So yeah, it's a lifestyle change, and they didn't realize it was a lifestyle change. They just thought, well, we did it and it's good, so now why do we need to continue to fund it?
Right.
Because it's good, and you guys have done a great job. And well, yeah, that log management, the centralized logging where you can do all this cool stuff with managing your logs and figuring out, finding root cause and finding where all this stuff happened and why it happened, and from your logging stuff, that's great. But yeah, we don't have money to replace that. And but we have this old PC in the back room that you can just put a syslog server on, right? Yes, technically that meets the definition of your policy that we can now collect our logs on a third-party system, but
yeah, not the same.
Yeah, no, definitely not the same.
Well, I mean, we could almost do a whole show on this, but the whole idea that if you're doing your job as security defenders, nothing bad happens.
Right.
And so how do you justify the spend? Well, nothing's gone wrong. Why do we need to be doing all this stuff? Mm-hmm. Well, it's because we're doing all this stuff.
Right. That was exactly the challenge that we had. And they refused to fund it. So as I've said many times, the best thing that I did for that organization was to leave.
Mm.
There was a DDoS for hire website
really?
web stressor that was shut down by federal agencies, which again I thought was more interesting when I flagged it. Western Digital MyCloud, it's something I wouldn't recommend just based on our covering vulnerabilities in that platform and similar ones with anytime you tie your NAS with something like your cloud, it always seems to lead to vulnerabilities, and there was one. A startup is offering $3 million to anyone who can hack an iPhone. Not sure what it means by hack an iPhone.
Right.
Step-by-step guide to making your penetration test a success was really basic information that we've talked about on the show.
Don't fuck
Skip it. Don't do it.
Yeah, I don't. No. I mean, if you've listened to the show, you probably don't need to read that article. Let's put it that way. We've covered that.
Oh my gosh,
that topic in a lot more detail.
I would argue that number 8 is not a success for your pen test. Remediating any found weaknesses. No, that's not my problem.
So. Robert Graham wrote an awesome article, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, the stupid it burns.
OMG, the stupid it burns.
Oh, wait. I get a time to practice because Mike Poor turned me on to something by accident the other day. I go, the stupid it burns. I go is, oh dear, or oh my god in Korean.
I go.
I
see.
I go.
Thank you. Learn something new every day. So apparently there was someone who wrote an article about the art of cyber war or something like that. And the Gruck tweeted that out and was like, well, this article was really bad.
I love the part at the very bottom.
Robert Graham did an awesome, and like so much so, what I thought was really truly amazing about what Robert wrote was he was very articulate, which he always is in his articles. And went into the appropriate amount of detail and explanation such that I didn't have to read the original article that they thought was crappy to get the insights.
The overall crappiness
from it. And Robert's insights are obviously a lot more interesting than likely what was published in that article, certainly. But his kind of counterpoints to everything in that article and how the author misunderstood those concepts like OODA loops and failed to really relate them to anything meaningful that someone would have to say about security.
Defense in depths and exploiting Wi-Fi chips.
So awesome.
And like, oh, God, no.
And Robert's comment is, OMG, the stupid it burns. And the Gruck says, yeah, I had low expectations and it failed to meet them.
Yeah. Yes, that's why I'm like yes.
So I thought you should read the article. I don't think we could really do it justice.
Yep. The views and opinions expressed are those of the author and not necessarily the positions of the U.S. Army, Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. I sincerely hope so.
Right.
The cyber guns of August.
Yes.
Wow.
Now I want to read the article because train wreck.
Read it for the train wreckery. And again, if you just read one of these, read Robert's because it's wildly entertaining and insightful, which it tends to be how Robert rolls on his blog. So you should follow it at Erratasec. That's ERRATASEC.com. So, any other articles you guys want to cover?
I think I'm good.
I think we're going to wrap it up and call it a show. Larry, take us out.
Over and out.